So Sandeep, talk to us a bit about your professional journey.
Yeah.
Your journey has spanned across geographies. You've been in the US, you've worked in the US as a teacher, you've contributed so much in India. You've been a part of Teach for India, now you're running the circle. So share with us some key moments that has shaped your journey so far. We'd love to know that.
Yeah. So I went into teaching thinking I would do this for 2 years,
Right.
right? And I went in actually very much with an agreement with my parents and my family. I'm going to do this for 2 years,
Mm,
and then I'm probably going to go back to medicine.
right.
And I think some of the most pivotal moments happened during those 2 years.
Fantastic.
I mean, my first day of school, I had a child actually throw a desk at me. I had a child charge at me on day 2 of school. And
Wow.
so I had some very tough
Yeah, it
experiences
is.
very early on. There were about 238 schools in the District of Columbia, and our school was actually ranked number 237 out of these on academics, right? And it was also ranked incredibly low on safety. And so what that meant is that we had people and principals coming and arresting kids on a frequent basis. What that meant is that I was spending a significant amount of my time very early on just breaking up fights.
Wow, must have been hard.
It was a very, very tough experience. And I think what happened over those 2 years is I think that I started thinking like, wow, this is incredibly challenging and I don't even know if this is possible,
Hmm.
you know? And I think what my kids showed me over time is that they're capable of doing anything.
Wow.
And actually, like the statistics, like all of the things that say that kids from impoverished backgrounds are actually, you know, dictated by poverty.
Right.
Like that just wasn't true, right? Like kids hold enormous potential.
Right.
And I think what my kids showed me over time is that they have a lot of perseverance,
Right.
you know?
That's so important. Yeah.
And the school that I was teaching at, like, it was a school that, like, by every possible means, like, it was struggling,
Hmm.
right? And yet, like, through a series of changes that happened over time, that school over the course of a few years went from struggling to actually being a pretty strong school that was impacting outcomes for
I can
kids,
imagine. Yeah. And
right?
how long did that take?
That took a period of about 4 to 5 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I tell you that because I think I saw two sides of this coin, right? Like I saw a school that in many ways was like not delivering on outcomes for kids and hadn't been delivering on outcomes for
Hmm.
kids.
Hmm.
And I also later on from afar,
Hmm.
like saw a school that had the power to actually be transformational for kids.
Right.
And when you look at both of those, like I think it made me come to a few realizations.
Hmm.
One is that schools hold power,
Yeah.
right? Like they have the potential to be catastrophic for kids. They also have the potential to be
Yeah.
transformational.
Either way, yes.
But two is that, well, usually the differentiator, usually the difference maker between those two poles is people, right? And when you break that down even further,
Hmm.
it's teachers,
Hmm. Very
right?
important.
Very strong talent,
Yes.
but it's also the person leading the school.
Right.
And I think that realization,
Hmm.
or all of those realizations,
Hmm.
kids are capable of anything.
Right.
That poverty doesn't have to dictate destiny.
Right.
And that schools have a lot of power to be able to shift that, but it takes people to be able to basically go from one pole to the other.
Right.
I think it's the reason I do this work. And I think it's the reason I continue doing this work. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. And then shortly after that, I jumped on a plane back in 2008 to move to India.
Mm-hmm.
Did so, I think, out of a few realizations. Part of it was a bit on a whim. And part of it was actually a bit of curiosity to say, like, there's this country that has shaped so much of my story.
Right.
What would it mean to actually go back and figure out how to play a role in shaping it?
Right. Did you have any sort of context to the education space in India then when you were coming to India,
No.
or was it like all new for you?
It was all new.
Okay.
I hadn't been back since I was 4,
Mm.
and I was 22 when I came back.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back saying that I would stay for a year.
Right. And then head back.
And that was 17 years ago. That was 16 years ago now,
Right.
actually. And yeah, I ended up spending 14 years with Teach for India.
Fantastic. Fantastic.